Hello, my name is Kinlock and I really like musicals. So when I go see musicals, I have a lot of thoughts and then I like to share them. I hope that's why you're here, because you want to hear my thoughts on Sunset Boulevard, starring Sarah Brightman. I'll just quickly try and bring you up to speed in case you haven't been following along. But basically, this production of Sunset Boulevard has been playing in Melbourne for a few weeks now. So back in May, it opened with Sarah Brightman, and then there were a bunch of reviews. And the reviews were all about her, and they were all negative. And that made some people sad and angry. And others probably had the Schadenfreude thing, but it was really just like the focus of attention from any review and anyone who saw the show was that she was not good. She was miscast. Her voice didn't sound good. It didn't sound right for the role. That she couldn't really act. Just everything was like, why? Why did this happen? So that happened. And then shortly after that, they started cancelling a few shows. They cancelled all the Tuesday shows. They cut the season short. And that drew attention to the fact that it wasn't selling very well. And then what happened? Well, we started hearing that Sarah wasn't performing at every show and her alternate, Sylvie Palladino, was often going on instead of her. And then that happened for like 3 weeks in a row. And it eventually got announced that she had a foot or ankle or calf injury and she'd done something, presumably on the stairs, twisted a thing or sprained or something. But there was a lot of criticism of the lack of communication around that because it took a long time for that to get communicated. And even when they did say, oh, this is the reason, there was still no like, she will be back on such and such a date. And so every day still became this like, well, who are we getting on stage? Is it going to be Sylvie or Sarah? Sylvie or Sarah? Sarah or Sylvie? And then Sarah came back into the show, got into the rhythm again, but then she was out again. And so then we were back to having lots and lots of Sylvie Palladino. And that gave a lot of people the opportunity to see Sylvie Palladino in the role. And people were saying, she was great. She's incredible. I would rather her be in the role. And it made people think, well, what if the reviewers had seen her? Would this have been a very different story? Would we not have been cancelling Tuesday nights? Because there would have been more good publicity. Would the tickets have remained at full price instead of being reduced? And would there have been fuller houses? And like, it's a fairly intimate theatre. It seats about 1,400 or 1,500. But there's 3 levels. There's like the stalls, the dress circle, and then the grand circle. And most of the performances, the grand circle never got opened. And the second time I saw the show, the theatre felt so empty. It was almost spooky. It was just like, wow, a few of us turned up. Well, that's nice. But yeah, it's just felt like there's just been this ongoing drama around the show where it just can't quite find its rhythm and find its audience and stuff. And every day we've been asking who's going to be playing what role. And so I've been wanting to see it again and give Sarah Brightman another chance. But it's taken a while because she kept not being on. But anyway, there's only a few more days left of this show, and I managed to see her on Saturday night, and I was like, this is going to be good. We're going to give her, you know, a full house on a Saturday night. Not quite full house, but almost. And that's like the best environment you can be in, right? It's setting her up to succeed. So, what did I think seeing Sarah Brightman perform Norma Desmond for a second time? Well, the main thing I would say is that if the performance she delivered on Saturday night had been the performance that reviewers had seen at the start of the season, everything could have been very different. She delivered a great performance. She has a really interesting take on Norma Desmond, one that we haven't seen before. Her voice sounded great. She often gets criticised for her diction and you can't quite make out what she's saying. And I found that to be true the first time I saw her. So much better. So much better. I still heard people commenting on that over the weekend saying her diction wasn't great, but for me, it was good. It was enough. It was fine. And I really enjoyed her acting. I was like, she can act. Could she act all along? Maybe she could. We just didn't see it because, honestly, the comparison between the first time I saw her perform the role and the second time, night and day, just, you wouldn't even believe that it's the same person. It's just that dramatically different. So let's talk about some of the ways in which she was different and some of the criticisms she received at the start and whether those things have changed. One of my main criticisms was that I couldn't really hear her, and that when she would start singing, her voice just lacked power. And it's one of those roles and the sort of music that demands power. You can put it into different keys. If you've got a higher voice, if you've got a lower voice, sure, I can buy into that. That's fine. Play around with the music a little bit. But there's more than one way to sing it, sure, but it demands power because these are dramatic moments. And if you want us to be fully invested in believing that there's strong feelings behind it, then the voice has to have power to it. And that's also the wow factor that you want from musical theatre as well. That's where a lot of the wow comes from. And it was lacking the first time. She would start singing and it was like she was just kind of going into herself and just whispering or something. I was just like, oh, this is not happening. Whereas now, full throttle, very powerful voice. She's gone from like a 1 on the power scale to like an 8. And I guess it was there all along. She could have done it all along, or was she sick? I don't know. There's still a lot of mystery and questions that remain. But the singing greatly improved, and she does have a beautiful voice, and now I can hear it and appreciate it. But like, if you can't hear the singing, you're not going to appreciate how beautiful a voice is, are you? As I say, there was still some criticism from others around not being able to make out every word she said, but for me it was enough. It was fine. I could figure out most of the words, so I didn't mind that. And then the acting. She's certainly not as kind of severe and dramatic as other people's interpretation of Norma Desmond can be. But I like that she did her own thing with it, and she sort of played to her strengths, which was being more ethereal and fluid and stuff. But rather than being floaty and weird, which was kind of what I got from it the first time, it was still a lot more like grounded and real, but just it gave that edge of being eccentric. And I thought it was great. It was the perfect balance. And you also got to appreciate how beautifully she moves. She glides. And, there's a couple of moments where Norma gets to dance, not full-on kick line chorus girl stuff, but I'm thinking of like the New Year's Eve scene where Jo and Norma are dancing together. If you've got people who can do that justice, it's so much nicer to watch than when you've got some awkward old lady dancing, which can be a character choice, but it's not as nice to watch. And she did that beautifully. Also, when she is doing her Salome dancing, and it's kind of like an interpretation of the Dance of the Seven Veils, I guess, but a little bit kookier. She just does it really well. And it was just beautiful to watch. Whereas, for instance, I found when Sylvie Palladino was doing that, it was a little bit awkward. And yeah, you can sell that as a character choice, that she thinks she's better than she is, Whereas there was something nice about her doing this dancing, and you could actually see that she is good at it. And it kind of made you root for her a little bit. I was like, oh yeah, I do want Norma Desmond to have a big comeback, because look, she's still got it. She's not completely delusional. Of course, as the story goes on, the delusion unveils itself. And yeah, but it's nicer that it's like a slower reveal. And then by the time you get to the end and she has her big breakdown, it's earned and it's more interesting. So I enjoyed this version of Sarah Brightman, and I hope that when the show is up in Sydney, she can knock it out of the park from the beginning of the season and get some good reviews and stuff, and perhaps we'll see the whole season play out differently. I still preferred Sylvia Palladino, but I'm happy to see that Sarah Brightman is worth seeing and worthwhile, and I think people won't be disappointed if she can keep it up. There's still this part of me that's just like, why was she not like this from the beginning? Is it a consistency thing? Is she gonna be different every night? Or is it just that took her a while to find it? I'm hoping it's more the latter. That's really all I wanted to share, because it's just a quick update. I've already kind of reviewed the show and other aspects of the show in my other video about it. So thank you for listening. Toodaloo.